On behalf of the Harvard College of Business at Auburn University, thank you for joining us for tonight's session, When the Practice of Medicine Becomes the Business of Medicine. I'm Katie McKay, Director of Student Recruitment for Graduate Business Programs. Joining me is Greg Bass, Communications Specialist, who will facilitate the question and answer portion of our webinar. Submit your questions at any time during the presentation. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen rather than chat or hand raise so that we can streamline the questions and the responses. If we do not get to your question during this live broadcast, we will follow up with you via email. Here are our panelists. Kim Curtin, Executive Director of Graduate Executive Programs, Joe Collazo, Assistant Director of Graduate Executive Programs, and Dr. Ray McHugh, Vice President of Medical Affairs and Chief Medical Officer at Chesapeake Regional Healthcare in Norfolk, Virginia, and a 2012 graduate of our Physicians Executive MBA program. Today we'll explore why a physician might need or want an MBA degree, the features of the Auburn Physicians Executive MBA, and hear from Dr. McHugh about his experience in the program. With that, let me pass this narrative to Dr. Joe Collazo. After a long and distinguished career as a businessman, and after earning several advanced degrees, Joe's a graduate of the PEMBA program, one of our leadership instructors, and the primary recruiter for the executive programs.
Imagine trying to take on the universe of modern medicine. Attempting to learn it all without specialization would take decades if it could be done at all. And even if you could do it, by the time you finished, much of what you learned in the first years of training likely would be obsolete. Specialization allows the completion of medical training within a reasonable time frame. However, to achieve that training without compromising quality, medical schools have to make decisions on their program's design, which courses they teach and which they don't. Rarely, if ever, does a business course replace a medical course. The reality is that MDs in general get zero business training. Physicians are well prepared for the medical challenges they face and capably take the leadership role in medical situations. Typically, in clinical practice, a small team delivers patient care. If anyone on the team needs clarification or direction, the doc will clear the way and answer the questions. That leadership role reinforces the expectation that the doctor will have the answers. When I ask physicians what they value most, their top 5 lists includes the confidence that my partners and patients have in me. That's enormously important, but it also sets up physicians to suffer in silence with what they don't know. For many physicians, what they don't know is high-level, decision-level business. That's what makes our program especially valuable. You'll be in a cohort made up entirely of other physicians, skilled medical professionals like you would see who would see the value in learning the business of medicine in the context of the practice of medicine. You'll learn from our top-notch faculty, but you'll also learn from each other. It's a potent combination. Consider this. Practicing effective medicine involves costly resources. For sustainability, coverage is an important consideration. For expansion, profit and retained earnings are critical considerations. However, given the complexity of executing diagnosis and treatment, it's natural that physicians focus on patient care. That's understandable. It's what you spent years being trained to do. But the business side of medicine still needs attention. That's long been the realm of the business people, who likely have little or no medical training. With good intentions, grounded in what they know, they try to optimize efficiencies and move more dollars to the bottom line. But even with good intentions, decisions may be made and policies implemented without a full understanding of how they affect the quality of patient care. This lack of understanding can set off a murmur of discontent, which, if unaddressed, becomes a roar. Business people need the physician's perspective on patient care when making policy. Auburn's program prepares you to provide that perspective from a new level of expertise that blends your deep grasp of medicine with a comprehensive understanding of critical business disciplines and practices. You'll be equipped to overcome a familiar frustration of our students, the dismissing of physicians from business meetings once they have shared their clinical insights, as though they couldn't offer business insights as well. Any medical organization, hospital, or specialization group needs both business and clinical talents to achieve operating success. Too often, these two vital functions exist in separate camps within the same organization. What's missing? The hybrid professional who understands both the practice of medicine and the practice of business. Informed by that broad understanding, policies can optimize operational efficiency without compromising the quality of healthcare. The fact is, it's easier and more expeditious to turn an MD into a business person than the other way around. Physicians are intelligent and disciplined by a strong medical training. We build on that intelligence and that discipline to address the business side of healthcare. The education, the experience of the Auburn program become the connective tissue between business concerns of the organization and clinical practice. Understanding both makes graduates highly desired assets at the decision level of healthcare organizations and puts them on the fast track for executive positions. I'll hand this off to Ms. Kim Curtin, Executive Director of Graduate Executive Programs, to give more details about the Auburn University Physicians Executive MBA program.
Thank you, Joe. You heard a little bit about the why, and now I'd like to tell you a little bit about the what, the Auburn Physician Executive MBA program. So we launched this program in the fall of 1999, and we've since graduated 20 cohort classes. We pioneered the hybrid model, where intensive residencies are combined with distance courses. And this model develops close relationships among faculty and peers, but also makes it possible to balance work and family life with a rigorous education. In addition to the Physicians Executive MBA, we also offer an Executive MBA and a Master's of Real Estate Executive program. So we have a breadth and depth of experience providing high quality education to an audience with high expectations. The program is accredited by AACSB, the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business. This organization is the global accrediting body for business schools and is held by fewer than 5% of the world's 13,000 business schools. We have two special partnerships. Auburn's Media Production Group is a full-service design and production studio, and they've worked with us since day one and kept us on the leading edge of technology and educational design. And we have a long-term relationship with Southern Medical Association. Two of our residencies are off campus, and SMA helps us develop the educational material and grants CME credit. A Washington, D.C. residency focuses on emerging issues in healthcare policy, and an international residency focuses on comparative healthcare systems. We launch a new cohort in the fall of each year, and in an effort to deepen the educational experience and promote peer-to-peer learning, we carefully select 20 to 30 physician executives each year with a broad diversity of work experience and specialties. Our program is 5 semesters long, 21 months, and during that time, you'll have 5 residency periods on campus, the international experience, and the domestic study trip to DC, all bridged with distance learning materials that have been developed specifically for physicians. Our students come from around the country and some even from around the world and represent almost every medical specialty. Our latest cohort had students from 12 different states and 10 different specialties. In lieu of an admissions test, we conduct personal interviews with each applicant, and PEMBA candidates must have an MD or DO degree and be a practicing physician. To give you the flexibility to move through the material at your own pace, we make all the courseware available at the beginning of each term. Here's a short clip from a core distance course with Dr. John Jahara.
What's the net advantage? We call this the net advantage to leasing. You take the present value of leasing, 572, minus the PV of owning, so minus a minus, and you get the 591, and you come out with $18,803. So the net advantage to leasing is $18,803. And you can just look at the numbers and tell which is cheaper, $572 or $591,000. Well, last time I looked, $572 is a lot less. So you save $18,000 on a present value basis by leasing this asset. So what should you do? Of course, you should lease it if you can save $18,000.
So you come to the program with a desire to learn, to expand your skill set, network, and advance your career. And we want you to focus single-mindedly on those goals. To that end, we'll help you with your application, register you for classes, order and provide all of your required course materials. We'll make your lodging arrangements, and we'll even make sure you have your cap and gown at graduation. This inclusive tuition includes all books and case materials, lodging in Auburn, DC, and on the international trip, and we cover most meals and all incidental AU fees. The tuition is $16.65 a credit hour. The degree requires 39 hours for a total tuition of just under $65K. We've held the tuition constant for the last 3 years, and it will not change while you're in the program. So I'd like now to hand this off to Dr. Ray McHugh. Ray is a graduate of the PEMBA program, class of 2012, and currently serves as the VPMA and CMO of Chesapeake Regional Healthcare in Norfolk, Virginia. Ray?
Thanks, Kim, and good evening. Tonight, I'd like to share my story and decision to pursue an MBA and why Auburn PEMBA program was absolutely the right choice. I think first of all, you may notice, beard's gone. I'm sure many of you watching and listening know exactly why. As you know, in the hospitals in the age of COVID-19, in order to get a good fit on what is now the iconic N95 mask, you need to be clean shaven. So that's why the beard's gone, outward sign of the important leadership that executives have to put into the hospital. But seriously, I'd have to say I've never found anything as challenging in my entire career in healthcare as dealing with the current COVID-19 pandemic. And I want to put this in the front of my talk because I can tell you, in talking about this program unequivocally, that my training and experience at Auburn was instrumental in preparing me for this task at hand, something we could never anticipate almost a decade ago when I first came aboard as a new student in the program. My story, I graduated from medical school in 1979. Now, I owed the military a little bit of time. After all, they just paid for a Georgetown education. I trained at Walter Reed, served in Germany, and left active duty as a major. Those of you in the military know that as an 04. But in the course of that military experience, you do leave with some pretty solid training in management. That was in 1987. I then settled down in Northern Virginia, and for the next 25 years, practiced as an OBGYN. During that time, I led and assisted several practices into larger mergers, culminating in a management position with Capital Women's Care. This was, and I think still is, one of the largest single specialty practices without walls. At the time I left, we had approximately 150 providers, and we were in 22 separate divisions. Many of them had multiple offices, and we covered about 17 hospitals. It was quite a footprint in the Washington, Baltimore metropolitan area. Now, at every step of that part of my early journey, I needed to acquire different business skills in order to be successful at each step. Well, it was driven by necessity, kind of learned it at the seat of my pants, and got pretty good at some of it. However, I also realized there were a lot of holes in my business skills, knowledge, and abilities. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I could work my way around a contract with a third-party payer. I knew how to create a business structure and work with budgets somewhat. However, I also realized I knew very little about important areas, such as marketing. It's not advertising. A SWOT analysis, what's that? Accounting, taking a general ledger to a balance sheet, are you kidding me? Finance, macro, microeconomics. I could read statistics, but I didn't understand what went into a quantitative method comparing things like attribute and variable data. In fact, a big shout out and thanks to Dr. Mitra. If he's out there listening, I still use information and what I've learned and lessons from his quantitative methods course every day. Supply chain, new to me, strategic planning at a corporate level. I had no idea what a net present value was, meant, or much less how to calculate one. I was also nearing what I like to call kind of the end of my, my clinical shelf life. I was 57. However, I realized the idea of retirement, that wasn't for me, and I still had a lot to give back. So if I was contemplating a change, I better do it now. And so I decided to expand and move on to an executive career path. So where do you go from there? Well, after researching several of the top programs, Auburn quickly became my first choice. And I'm going to list 5 reasons about why I chose Auburn. Number one, absolutely, first-class faculty. They're just outstanding. You know, you saw that little clip from John Johara on leasing. I had a smile as I was watching it, because he also, at the end of teaching us about leasing, taught us how to do the proper analysis if we're deciding on a private lease for cars and things of that nature. And actually gave us a handout that I still carry around with me. So there's some real practical knowledge that kind of branched off trying to make decisions about purchasing for the hospital. This faculty really understood the challenge of dealing with career physicians, physicians with experience in management, but lacking that full education and training of a true executive that would find themselves in a corporate position. Number 2 was the cohort program itself, coupled with the distant learning. That was very important to me. It was 5 semesters, each one, and Kim did touch on this a bit, but each one of them begins with about a week on campus that you get to spend with your classmates. The on-campus portion of each semester was invaluable. It was an opportunity to be away from distractions, the distractions of a busy medical practice, and yes, away from the distractions of family life and the other expectations you have during the course of your normal day. And away from those distractions, you could immerse yourself in a real educational experience. I mean, quite literally, you're wearing your backpack, put your cap on, you're carrying your books, and you're going from class to class. At the end of the day, you're sitting down with your buddies, having some beers, and talking about the day's experience and getting to know each other. You really get to know these individuals well. Now, we did interact somewhat with the Executive MBA program. There was a little bit of overlap, particularly in the first semester, where it's a lot of the very, very important fundamentals. However, to receive the education and training with an all-physician cohort is important. The individuals from my PEMBA class, we are all very close. I count many of those individuals now as some of my closest friends, and we stay in regular contact. We watch our kids grow. We share information. We talk a lot about what we're doing and how we're addressing the COVID pandemic in our various parts of the country and our various healthcare systems. Very, very important to me. Third, the time commitment was ideal. By spreading it out over 2 years, I was able to sit down with my partners and lock in all the time I would need off during the entire academic commitment. And it gave as minimal a disruption to my practice as far as my presence. Now, my family would probably tell you something different, because I'm not going to kid you, it's a lot of work. You've got to be able to commit 10 or 12 hours during the week. And often, particularly around the times of midterm or finals, boy, I'd be out of commission for that whole weekend. Although it did give some nice bonding experiences to my daughter and my wife, you've got to really be committed. It is work. Fourth was the opportunity to get off campus. For example, the time we spent in DC. And I found that a great benefit, even though I lived in the area and practiced in that area, because it was an opportunity, again, to step away from the distraction of your practices, get back with your buddies and your cohorts and your fellow students, and meet and interact with healthcare lobbyists and other leaders in Congress and understand the shaping of healthcare policy. Keep in mind, I started in 2010. That was the same year that the Affordable Care Act was rolled out. In fact, I first heard the term value-based purchasing and ACO while a student in the Auburn program. And fifth, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit, was the experience abroad. It was amazing. My class had the opportunity to experience the Italian healthcare system, and we split our time between the Careggi University in Florence and the Gemelli in Rome. And during those experiences, we met with the Minister of Health. We interacted with regular family practice docs, but we were also in their emergency rooms and intensive care units in real time. That experience translated into a very practical use. Who would have thought 10 years later, Italy became the global center for this pandemic crisis? Knowing something of their system, I could understand some of the challenges and the stresses that so quickly overloaded that system. Now, here in Virginia, at the Commonwealth level, I work with our professional organizations, including the Medical Society of Virginia and the VHHA, which is the Virginia Hospital and Health Association. Again, that Auburn experience, and particularly the time abroad, has helped me add meaningful dialogue to the discussions in Richmond and help structure policy and protocols that we're using throughout the state. Very, very helpful. So those are my 5 top reasons for coming, and ones you should seriously consider. They're all very important. Now, another question I'm often asked, and something you might be dealing with, is why an MBA rather than a Master's in Healthcare Administration, the MHA? And I would say, I guess, if you're sure that your lane is going to stay strictly in as a hospital administrator inside a system, certainly that's a good option. However, the MBA opens you up to a much broader experience. There are many opportunities outside of the traditional hospital administrative path. You study things like patents, development of medical devices, management of information technology. Several members of my class have gone on to become chief medical information officers at various facilities. Advanced AI, artificial intelligence, that's probably one of the hottest fields in general, but particularly in healthcare. Pharmaceutical development, finance, and stock analysis. I actually was able to understand the important role of an investment banker. They really do earn their money, but also how to generate capital through bond initiatives. And I found the same thing when I got my medical degree. You think when you go to medical school and you get your medical degree, you've made a decision. But as you go through the process of a medical education, you realize there's a lot of decisions, a lot of doors open, a lot of ways that you can go. Same thing with the MBA. You'll find, particularly given the rich experience at Auburn and the wide range of experience you'll have, it opens up a lot of doors. And I can tell you, there's opportunities in front of you that you don't even know exist until you spend some time in this program. But for me, I must say the highlight of an Auburn education was the opportunity for the self-discovery and personal growth. The minute you step onto the Auburn campus, you immediately feel part of something that's larger than yourself. A culture that's committed to you as an individual, taking you forward to your best self, while also keeping you focused on the greater good and how you can serve. Under Stan Harris's guidance, and I guess I need to refer to him as Dean Harris now, most of our first and second semester was focused heavily on developing leadership skills. As physicians, given the intensity of our clinical training, we tend to assume we acquire these additional skills somehow, I don't know, magically during our education. However, at Auburn, you quickly realize that we don't always score so high on the self-awareness and emotional intelligence. We find that out very quickly. But don't fear. The Auburn program isn't about in any way trying to change who or what you are, but rather Auburn is making darn sure that you know who you are. You know how you think. You know what buttons you have and who can push them. That is the essence of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, probably the 2 most important components of a successful leader. As physician executives, we have a unique role inside our hospitals and healthcare systems. And it is unique because we simultaneously have one foot sort of on the blunt end of the sphere and the other foot on the sharp tip of that spear, facing outwards to all the challenges in healthcare today. In my private practice, yeah, I was a pretty good doctor, top docs in DC and all that. And yeah, I saved people's lives and responsible for good outcomes. But I have to tell you, in the corporate world, I quickly realized that even with a quarter century of experience, I was still looking at medicine only through a pinhole. I often find myself in high-level meetings where I'm talking now, would be the only physician in the room. In that world, that pinhole I was looking through opens up into a full, wide vision of healthcare. In private practice, over many years, I've impacted the lives of patients. However, as a healthcare executive, I participate in decisions that can affect thousands of lives. It's a very, very different responsibility, a unique responsibility, but something you'll enjoy once you learn that craft. As a physician executive with now almost 10 years of experience, I certainly have increased my income, but that's not important. what I found was a second career, a career I love, in which I truly feel fulfilled. Although I could have received my MBA at a different program, I believe, and I truly believe, my success would not have been possible without the total Auburn experience. Now, we've gone through the why, the what, and finally, we're at the why not. You know, these are challenging times, both personally and professionally, but it also may be the perfect time. Strong physician leadership is needed now more than ever. The PEMBA program will teach you the skills that will help you take control and guide organizations through this especially turbulent time. We'll give you an opportunity to distinguish yourself in your organization as someone who can be a leader through all and any challenge ahead. And it will build a network of professional support that can help you through the rest of your career. It still helps me. I'm still very much in touch with my friends in the PEMBA program, the professors, and the entire family environment of Auburn. So War Eagle, and I'll turn it back to Kim.
Thank you so much, Ray. Thanks for your time tonight and also for choosing Auburn for your MBA degree. So now I'd like to turn it to our audience and to take your questions.
Thank you, Kim. We had a number of good questions that came in, and although we did have questions already, I would like to remind those attendees that we still have a moment or two for you to enter any questions that are top of mind, and we'll try to get those to those as best we can. Kim, this first question's to you. It's actually a two-part question related. How many CME credits will I earn through the program? And then more specifically, will I earn maintenance of certification credits?
Okay, well, I'm not sure I understood the second part of the question. So the first part of the question is, we do have our partnership with Southern Medical Association, and they are our partner to award CME. They do it for our 2 off-campus residencies, the international experience, which you would do in the summer of the first year in the program, and that awards approximately 20 hours of CME credit. And then the second trip, which is the DC policy course, you take it in the final semester of the program in your second year, and that usually awards between 15 and 17 years of credit, not years of credit, CME credit. What was the second part, Greg?
Oh, MOC credits, maintenance of certification.
I'm going to, since I don't know what that is,
I'll jump in on that. Yeah, maintenance of certification is a topic into itself. I'll give you a simple answer. As far as the Auburn PEMBA program goes, no. But you know that's turned into a cottage industry, and it's it's defined by each of the professional organizations, the various colleges, and the board certification. So no, that's an area that Auburn's not going to wander into. And as you know, it's extremely controversial, and there's a big push to get rid of it, quite frankly. But no, MOC, that would not be part of this.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, next question came in from Eric, and I like this question. Can my wife join me on the international and the DC trip?
Yes.
And I would chime in absolutely.
What's that, Ray?
I would chime in absolutely.
Yeah. We do work through, again, with our partner SMA, and they put spouse and guest programs together on both of those trips. And so people are absolutely welcome and quite often encouraged to bring, friends, family, children, and they will have activities planned for them while our students are in class. We do realize that, yes, it's a study trip, but we're also doing it in another country. And so we build cultural tours in and make time for people to enjoy where we are and really get a sense of those countries and those cultures and those climates, in addition to the educational experience.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Kim, absolutely you want to bring your families. And just to share some of the lighter side of that, when we're in Rome, sure, I'm getting up still at the crack of dawn, just like I'm back home, trudging off to a hospital and in an emergency room. Oh no, my wife and daughter, they're having a leisurely breakfast. They're on a bus to the Amalfi Coast. Boy, they have a good time, believe me, while you're off at the hospital and continuing your learning experience.
Thank you, Dr. McHugh. Thank you, Kim. Let's come back around to the CME credits again. So our next question came from Monica. Are the CME credits AMA or AOA approved?
AMA.
AMA. Thank you very much.
Category 1, is that SMA coordinates this, but I believe they're called Category 1.
They're Category 1.
Yeah.
But I think they're applicable both to a DO and MD program.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, wonderful. Okay, next question. And this came from Melinda. Are the residency days typically a Monday through Friday?
No, they're not. The residencies are basically set up to be 3.5 days, and they typically run you arrive on campus on a Wednesday. Class will run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, half day Sunday, and then you would depart. So the general travel window would be a Wednesday through a Sunday, with class running Thursday through half day Sunday.
Yeah, and I know back in my time, that was something that we did put a lot of discussion in. You know, do you want half day Wednesday with Thursday, Friday? You know, I enjoyed as much time on campus, but that is, again, you're burning off leave, you know, paid leave and things like that off of your practice, and you're going to be spreading this over 2 years. And a lot of us would come early, so we got a night out together the day before, and not necessarily rush out of town on Sunday.
All right. All right, Kim, this next question came from Dr. Saxon. Am I required to attend all of the residencies, and how much advance notice do we get regarding residency dates?
You have absolute advance notice because it is a lockstep program, and the curriculum is set and the residency dates are set as well. So if you were to look at the PEMBA 2022 curriculum model, it would show you the Auburn residency dates, the international dates, the DC dates, so that you could plan between now, August of 2020, all the way through May of 2022, and those dates would not change, barring, you know, pandemic events. So, you know, obviously we're having to, you know, address some of those concerns with what we're going through right now. But, you know, our intention is to host those residencies on campus and take those trips as they're planned out on the curriculum.
Yeah, and let me again reiterate, to me, that was one of the attractions of the PEMBA program at Auburn, is that literally I knew every day I had to be away from my practice for the entire 2 years, the entire 5 semesters. Very, very helpful to be able to plan out the entire experience.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, this next question came in from Dr. DeJulio. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Is it common in your experience for physicians groups or hospitals to offer tuition support or reimbursement when you're in the program?
It is. Many of our students are supported from their groups or their hospitals to provide tuition support. But a lot of physicians, you know, pay their own way through the program as well. So, you know, we'll see both.
Yeah, and I would add to that that's a question that I get a lot, individuals seeking to come in the program. And I usually encourage them to go and talk to your organization because you do have the opportunity to work something out with salary adjustment, hours worked, and do have an opportunity to perhaps pay for that with pre-tax dollars. I don't know if Kim is going to touch on this again, but you also get to come down and apply for financial aid. Just to, again, share a little bit of my own story. I can't tell you how shocked I was because I got there that first day on campus. They say, you got to fill this out. This is part of coming to school. And lo and behold, I qualified for financial aid. I was shocked. I don't know if that was more a statement about me, the state of medicine, or what, but I did have 2 kids in college at the time, so maybe that was what's helped. But boy, what a shock to say, yeah, you qualified, here you go.
All right. Okay, Dr. McHugh, I think this question's certainly up your alley. Were you practicing full-time when you took the PEMBA program? How'd you manage your schedule? You touched upon that a little bit earlier, but maybe you can expand on that just a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was working full-time in a busy obstetrical practice, taking call at night, the whole 9 yards. And again, what's so helpful about it is being able to map it out over the 2 years. And again, you got to have good supportive part. You have to have good support at everything. You know, not just your partners, but your wife. Oh my gosh, your family. Because when you're not working, You're going through your lectures, and you're working on your papers, and you're doing your research. You're collaborating with your fellow students that are scattered around the country. I'm not going to kid you that it's not hard work, and it's not a commitment. But I would say no. I was able to do it with certainly a minimal amount of disruption to the practice, but it's a challenge. And the other thing I find too, for those of you that are thinking about doing this, if you're thinking about doing it, just do it. I come across so many people that, oh, I'm going to go back to law. I'm going to go back and do this, and they never do it. Just do it. If I could give anybody any advice. The other trick I did was I told every single person I knew I was doing this, every family member, every friend, every colleague. That way, if I try to bail, oh my gosh, I'd have so many people I have to explain to. So I just said, boy, it's full speed ahead. Everybody knows I'm doing this. My partners are on board. My family knows what we're getting into, and no turning back. But I was able, I'm not gonna say easily, but I was 57 years old. I'm assuming you're a much younger man. But, no, I was able to do it. But you've got to be committed and really stay focused. You can't, when they talk about that being a lockstep program, they aren't kidding you. You start in the summer with a foundation course in finance, accounting, marketing, and economics, and then that first semester you do sort of a standard graduate school level of those big four. And then you don't have to select your electives, but you get right on into healthcare finance and healthcare law and quantitative methods for in healthcare and healthcare measurements. You got to take it seriously. You got to take it seriously, but it's very doable.
Thank you. Kim, Melinda had asked us a question earlier about the days in which residencies occur, Monday through Friday or whatever the case may be. So she came back and just said, I'm in Alaska, so traveling's a big issue. Not a question, but I thought this might be an opportunity for you to talk about the concierge style service that the staff provides.
Right, and we certainly do have physicians who travel to our program from, all over the country. Basically, if you can fly to Atlanta, you can get to Auburn. We do have a shuttle service that runs from the Atlanta airport to the AU hotel where our students stay. So you don't even have to rent a car if you don't want to. But once you get on campus, we take care of everything else. So, we will order all your books and case materials. They'll be there waiting for you. You register for your classes. We have buses that take you if we go out to dinner or we're going to a special event. So, all the physician really has to do is commit to coming to campus for those residencies. As Ray said, they are key. They're building that cohort, they're building that peer support network, they're helping you through the distance part. Distance can be, lonely and challenging, and you get home and all of a sudden all the other distractions and work and responsibilities all, come back into play. And knowing that you've got that peer group that you're working on projects with, that you can reach out to, that can say, you can do this, you can do it. The other thing is the faculty know you're working professional physicians. And while we do have a syllabi and deliverables and deadlines, we also have a lot of flexibility. So the way I like to describe it is structure with flexibility. So you want that structure, you want that organization around your courses and what you have to do and when it's due. That's going to help keep you going and meeting those guidelines. But we also understand that you might have an emergency call or something happen personally, and you just need to reach out to the faculty and say, I need an extension on that work, and they'll absolutely work with you and grant that. So again, we have a whole team in place that's been working for, as we said, 20 years, bringing physicians in, supporting you through it, and committing to trying to graduate everybody that walks in the door. And I think we do that. You have your part, the faculty have their part, and then the staff are going to be there as well.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is, to a certain extent, that's the very point. I mean, this is a national recognized program at a nationally recognized ranked university. That's the very diversity we look for. If I look at my cohort, my gosh, I was in with cardiologist, an anesthesiologist specializing in cardiology from a specialty center out in California, orthopedics from Florida, kidney specialist from Mississippi, real interesting ED doctor, ex-military in Memphis. I'm from Virginia. It's that very diversity and being able to network with individuals from all over the country. It helps. Medicine is so diverse, and be able to have that kind of network when you can. I'm doing that now. We're putting together videos to try to let people know that hospitals are safe and you can come back into them now. And I reach out to my friends all over the country. Hey, how are you addressing this? Would you show me your video? How are you communicating to your community? It's a network that will just become invaluable. And the very fact that it's diverse and comes from all over is, I think, again, I could make that number 6 on my reasons to come to Auburn.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you. Thank you both for that. On a personal note, Melinda pointed out that her daughter is actually an incoming freshman at Auburn this fall. So, Melinda, thank you for entrusting her to us here.
War Eagle.
For education, War Eagle. Okay, next question. Joe, I've got a question for you. Here we go. Are there any opportunities to visit the program and speak with the current cohort?
Absolutely. We'll make time. We want you to have exposure to the Auburn experience. While we take the time to assemble the communication that helps you understand what we have to offer, it doesn't quite hit the mark that you would have through the Auburn experience. We welcome you to come to our facility. Our education, our graduate, our business graduate programs facility is world-class. It's a $43 million facility that we just occupied this year, and it's a remarkable place, and we welcome your visit. If you have the time, please reach out to me. I will make time to greet you and give you the tour.
Great. Joe, thank you. I'm gonna push the next question your way again, if you don't mind. With minimal experience in business, do you require pre-enrollment courses?
Well, one thing we understand is that with the involvement and the all-consuming learning that comes with becoming a physician, we understand that your business exposure is very likely to be minimal. So you come to school to learn, and we fully understand that. So it's not so much we're looking to test you. We do take the time to understand, what special experience that you have, what special experience do you have that you can contribute to the cohort? And we take the time to try to discover that with each of the members in the cohort so that we can share what we're strong at and fill each other's gaps. But one of the things that concerns physicians, and it's actually a very widespread, common concern, is that they realize that given their trajectory in terms of development, that they don't have much exposure to formal business training. As a consequence, they don't understand a lot of things about business. What we understand is we actually understand that, and we encourage you to just grasp one simple thing: is you come to school to learn. And that paradigm that we talked about earlier, that physicians do get accustomed to being perceived as the one with the answers. And the thought of coming to business school can be a daunting, proposition. And so I can't say enough about, don't be concerned about that. You come to school to learn. We're going to help you open up in terms of acknowledging, I don't know this and I don't know that, so that we can move in and help you fill those gaps.
Well,
I think Joe absolutely spot on, and absolutely spot on. And what I could add to that is you do get the summer to do some foundation courses. And after all, we're physicians. We're supposed to be bright. And by the way, think back to undergrad. Remember all those business students out there playing Frisbee while you were slaving away in a lab for 1 credit? Believe me, you can get up to speed and you can be right with them before you know it. And again, the faculty is so keyed into that and so sensitive and so geared to where you're all coming from. You'll be amazed.
Dr. McHugh, let let me address this next question to you. This came from Syed, and he wanted to know, what are the job prospects in the U.S. or elsewhere after completing this program?
That's a great question. And I go around and talk about the physician executive. And I have this one lecture, and I call it "What's on Your Card?" And I have, if you can picture a slide with the word chief, and then like a little spin wheel in the middle, an officer, so chief medical officer, okay? But you can spin that wheel and, oh my gosh, chief medical education officer, chief population health officer, chief data officer, chief wellness officer. I mean, you name it. I think I've collected about 20 different titles that go between chief and officer now, and it just keeps expanding. Back going almost 10 years ago now, when I came into the PEMBA program, as I mentioned, that was just when the ACA had rolled out. And at that time, I remember thinking amazing about this, but as our faculty pointed out to us, for the full implementation of this new way, you'd have to take almost 10% of the practicing physicians at the time and put them into administrative roles. It's like everything else. The tough part is getting that first job. But I'm telling you, once you get that job and you're an experienced physician executive, you will always have a job. But getting that first job can be a little challenging.
Thank you. Thank you. Kim, let's dive into the details a little bit. Is payment due per semester or fully upfront?
Right. So you're billed each semester based on the number of credit hours that you take in that term. So it is spread out per semester throughout the five terms that you're in the program.
Thank you. We have a question from Dr. Rodriguez. Do you accept Duolingo English test for international students?
Duolingo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Not a problem.
I would think that's a tough one because you really have to be proficient in English, to get through the program. I know this comes up a lot with in some of the medical schools, and I've had some friends who would come over to do their clinical years at an American medical school. And I can tell you many stories of that, only to get over and find out that their English wasn't proficient enough for them to actually function in the clinical rotations. Now, what they've done at some of the schools where that's occurred, because these are top students from other countries, is generally got them employed and had them work intensively for a year and then brought them back in. But I would think you'd need to be proficient in English enough to be able to take any type of entrance test. But that's just my 2 cents.
We do require a TOEFL for international applicants from non-English speaking countries, but I'm not sure what the Duolingo test is, but it's absolutely something, reach out, let's talk about it. I'll talk to the graduate school. We can find out, what the protocols are for that. I know right now with all the COVID-19 issues, a lot of testing centers are closed. And so those testing centers and all graduate programs are being very creative and accommodating with students who are unable necessarily to take some of the tests that might normally be required for graduate school. So, it's just the kind of thing where we just have a conversation about it.
Okay. Kim, we just had a little bit of input from our admissions advisor, Julie Vaught, who said, yes, we do accept Duolingo. The score must be above 110. So very specific. There you go. Wonderful.
There we go. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. All right, let's stick with the details, but I'm going to pose this question to Dr. McHugh. Discuss the work required. You mentioned papers, etc.
Oh yeah, you're back in school. You'll be writing a lot of papers. The way it goes is you start off with your time on campus, which is a great time. You usually have a little intensive. You meet your professors for that next semester, and then they literally give you all their lectures on a DVD form that you can work on at home, which is usually helpful. And not only that, again, the faculty is amazing because they know right where you're going to have issues. You can tell them, hey, I'm on lecture 10 at 8.8 minutes and 25 seconds, and they know exactly what your problem is. Well, usually you just have to tell them where your question is inside their lecture, and they know exactly what to come back with. But yeah, it's back. And for me, this was the first time I'd written a paper since back in the days when we went to the library with little index cards, and you line them all up and then put your paper together. This is the first time my first paper was for ethics. And it was the first time actually creating a paper online. And I'll tell you a little story about that, because the professor said, well, hey, if you're having problems with your papers, send them in and I'll look them over for you. So I wrote what I thought was a great paper. And I realized I hadn't footnoted anything. And God knows where it was. So I was pulling I don't have my little cards anymore. So I sent it in saying, well, I'll send it in. I'm sure he'll say, this is great, and we're done. So he reviews it and gets back to me and says, Ray, excellent paper, perfect. He goes, just source it out and send it back and you're good to go. So, oh, great. So I had to kind of work my way back and find out where I'd gotten all the information. But you'll write papers. The way the tests work is when you're ready for a midterm or a final, you push the button, they send it to you, and off you go. I'll never forget my first accounting test. I mean, I thought I was ready and raring to go, and push the button. When I opened that up, gosh, it was just like white noise. It was just numbers that we had to pull out and build a general ledger and take it through the balance sheet, even end up with the company notes and the director comments. But you get through it, and I'd have a question and send it into a professor. Take accounting, for example. I had a $300 error after completing all this. I couldn't find it anywhere to save my life. And I tried every trick in the book, and I finally gave up and sent it to my accounting professor. He was back to me laughing in about 15 minutes, said, Ray, go to sell something on page somewhere. And lo and behold, that's what had happened. I moved a cell that was 3,300 and left 300 behind. But he made the point. He said, I got such enjoyment out of the exercise you went through, because now you have some understanding of what happens inside an accounting firm. All those things you did to try to make that balance, that's what we do inside accounting firms every day. And it gave you such an appreciation of, wow, this is really something, and it is a skill, and it is an art. So you're not going to walk away being an expert in all these fields, but you'll understand them well enough. And it gets back to the other question I had about what are the opportunities in medicine for physician executives now. And that is another beauty of the MBA, because they're different for different systems. I host a CMO forum. We now call it a physician executive forum. And if I have 15 physician executives sitting around the table, and I point to each one and say, tell me what you do, I'll hear 15 different things. And it's because they're in different systems that have different needs, and there are different places and different journeys and different sizes. In fact, one of the things I'm working on is to have sort of a coherent mission and expectation of a physician executive. And again, it's another lecture I have, but I give you a road with 2 guardrails. And what that road represents is, medical systems just hell-bent down that road, not knowing where they're going, but they got to get there before the next guy. And there's 2 guardrails. And the guardrail on the one side are your lawyers, that's compliance. And on the other side, it's quality and safety. And that's where your physician executive lives. I mean, our responsibility is to patients. I mean, we're the conscience of the systems. We're the ones that make sure those systems are safe and it's high quality. And at any time we see that wavering, we've got to push back and say, no, you're bouncing off this guardrail. Again, all of this was seeded and put in place from my experience at Auburn. But yeah, I don't want to. It's work. You're in a graduate program.
So Greg, just to follow up just a little bit on Ray's comments. So when Ray was in the program, we did deliver the material on a DVD. We do stream the material now. It's embedded within the learning management system that the students use, so that you do have streaming, both online and offline availability for all the lectures. And the other thing, when you talk about like, how are we assessed, do I write papers? And you will. You will have group work. There's presentations when you're in residency. Like Ray said, you'll take exams. But we don't do proctored exams. We don't do where you have to go into a proctoring environment and, you have 2 hours. They're typically you sort of open book, open notes, still individual work. The focus is, and the assumption is that you're all here to actually learn the material. And so it's a very applied learning, and there's a great deal of integrity and built into the system.
That's right. Open book tests are hard.
Yes. Very much so. Joe, I want to turn the spotlight back on you. Are there any extra certifications that we'll need to earn while in the program?
There's a certification that you earn in the quality course known as Six Sigma. It's a Six Sigma green belt is what you earn. It's a statistical method that's very useful in assessing variance in the processes that are applied to support quality and safety.
Right. And so, and to follow up on that, Joe, that's a relatively new aspect of our curriculum. I think we brought it in about 2 years ago. And so when we added that course and that certification to the curriculum, we actually then went and made it available to all of our alumni free of charge. We created the portal for them to log in so that they had access to that material as well. And so that's something, you know, as we make those curriculum adjustments and innovations, you know, we're constantly keeping our alumni involved in that process so that material is available.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and this came from Jim. What happens if I need to stop? Is it possible to rejoin? And how long do I have to complete the degree once I start again?
So because it is a lockstep cohort program, the way we say it is that you're either all in or you're all out. For the most part, people make it through, but it is 21 months and a lot of life can happen in that time, both professionally and personally. We have counselors that work very closely with our students every semester to make sure that everybody's on track and, you know, how is it working for you and your work-life balance. But if something comes up and the situation is such that the student does need to stop, you know, we would advise you through that process. And then you could simply step back into another cohort. We have that happen. Not frequently, but certainly it does happen. We want you to come back. We want you to graduate. You would just step out for that year and then step back in with the cohort that comes behind you, or even the next one. The only rule about the length of time is that at the time you graduate, no course for credit can be more than 6 years old. So the easiest way to think about it is that once you start the program, you effectively have 6 years to complete it.
Okay, thank you, Kim. And I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their insights and all of our attendees for their excellent questions. Before concluding and turning this back over to Katie, I would just like to ask, we'd like to know where our attendees reside. So if you could just take a moment and in the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, if you could just enter in the city and state where you reside, we'd be grateful for that information. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Katie. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Well, we appreciate your interest in the Physicians Executive MBA program and look forward to guiding you through the next steps. Please visit us at this website or reach out via phone or email, or scan the QR code on the screen to schedule a consultation with Dr. Collazo. On behalf of our team and the Harvard College of Business, thank you and War Eagle.